All right. The Britain Book, Chapter 1. To my stalwart son, always well beloved, I greet you heartily, desiring to hear of your welfare. Be not displeased at my going from Kelshaw or my manner of departure, for I first gave your mother and sister over to good keeping in the hands of the good Mistress Cotter. Verily, such tidings were brought to me by divers persons of the craft on matters of our abiding concern, that I was beholden to come hitherwards. Nor durst I now go hence, for the charge remains lying heavily upon my breast. As for the hemp shill, he lied to us, for he is a knave and a churlish one, and we were fools to be deceived by his wiles and his tongue speaking such wild language. I will entreat with the bailiff, and mayhap he who stands in the Lord's place will abide my supplication. As we planned, you do thereafter, but I pray you beware in what manner you walk, for those among whom we walk are full black-hearted and enwrapped in the ways of wickedness. They desire an end to all things in which we hold fast, but are not as staunch that they will set upon you in a manly way, but will start out upon you like lurking footpads. Beware too what you eat and drink, and trust not even they who speak fair unto you, for the hands of all outsiders are against us. Send me tidings of Long Will and Goodwife Abigail, and the John of Cordwainer, and John of the Wildwood Band, and others who stood in at the tithing ere you departed. It is to my abiding contentment that we have been able to acquit the wanderers in full good measure, for the braziers did their work right stoutly in a cunning manner. Had we a clerk among us, then we could have been wrought to more avail, but no matter, for their hand was firm and they faithfully followed the marks. Now, take you the secured budget and go against Loo Law, and leave in there in the cell under the Grimm's barrow where Alan the peddler secured his hoard. In the book of Britain it is written, Iliad came seaborne in the ship of Tarsus from across the sea of Witka, setting up at Rafina in the land of the Wains. From thence to the river Tarant, which flows between the kingdom of Albany and the kingdom of Corin, Albany being the land between the Aeson and Icta, passing Ivron and Incels south of the Cathelbron, and then past Dinsolin to take water at the town where ships traded, standing at the foot of the red cliff between the two white ones around the extreme of the world to the northern Ecta in Soluria. Here, they were unwelcome, but were permitted to take water and wood and to trade for meat and grain. Sailing thence towards the rising sun, they came to the place beyond Sabrin called Summerland. There, nope, they were coldly welcomed by Homodren of the chariots, but in the kingdom of Averlagus they came under the mantle of the high druid of the south, whose ear was inclined towards them, for he understood full well the nature of the three-faced god. The king heard their words, but did not take them to heart, saying they differed little from what was there. Nope. Then were the shipborne wanderers given land over from the isle of departure, saying that, could they live where no one else could because of the spirits, then the holiness would be established before all people. The strangers were so sorely tried by the druids, but the spirits troubled them not, nor did the sickness of the place come upon them, and the people wandered. They were troubled because of where the strangers were, and were stirred up by the Druthan, but the shield of Aver, Arvagaris protected them. Now, Eastward and to the north there was a lake, and between this and the Isle of Departure there was a swampland, and there was a village of houses that stood out above the water, and the mood maidens and the mood matrons who served the dead dwelt there. Among these was Islas the dreamer, who was sacred to the guardian of this place. Islas was the daughter of the queen's youngest sister and a holder of the king's favor, and when she attended him, she divulged her dreams. It happened that she dreamed the same dream thrice, and this was its manner as she told it to the king. Behold, I saw a moon which had three changing faces, and as I watched the changes, the moon itself changed and became a sun, and within this sun was a face of God. As I looked long on this sun, another sun appeared, and such was its brilliance that the first sun appeared inferior in brightness. Then the two became one, and its brilliance filled the sky. In the midst of this I saw the king and many Durthan and priests of the strangers. Then I saw a great battle sword, and the brilliance faded, as did the figures, and only the sword remained, from which blood dripped drop by drop. Then, too, it faded. The king took heed of the dream, and gave the strangers land beside the summer house of the king, which could be reached by ships. Inland from here, the gifted land extended to the tree now called the Great Oak, which still stands, and thence to the hill south of the residence where Iliad, being wearied, rested against a great stone. Beyond this was an avenue of standing trees, and oak trees placed one on one, and the gifted land came up against this. It extended southward to the holy vineyard, which was fenced about. The fruit of these vines was small and bitter in the mouth. The strangers built huts for shelters on the hillside, high enough to be free of the tides. They settled down and learned the language, though Iliad and two of the women spoke it strangely. The words of the strangers fell on deaf ears, for the people were content with the gods they knew and did not wish to weary their minds with the words of new ones. When the strangers gathered in praise of the one true God, the tribesmen stoned them and shouted abuses, but Iliad persevered, and while later the people still would not believe that God of whom he spoke was more powerful than their gods, they would sit around and listen to his stories. Now, when the strangers were granted the land, the Druthan disputed this with the king and said that they wanted a divine sign that their gods approved. Iliad said, "Give me but half a year." At the witnessing of this, the Druthan set up a holy stone, and Iliad struck his staff into the soil and marked the covenant. The following eve of summer there was a gathering, and it was found that a small green shoot was coming up from the ground beside the staff, which was an offshoot of the staff. The king decreed that this was a sign that the land accepted the strangers, but these took it as a sign that what they taught fell on fertile ground and would take root. Here the strangers, now called the wise ones, were free from the yoke of Rome and from the intolerance of the Jews. They were not subject to immoral customs and were among the right living people, simple but pure in mind and body. Close by was a place for trading in metals, slaves, dogs, and grain. Here Iliad built himself a house unlike any others, for it was square and in two parts, more stone than timber. This place was called Quanad. Here, on 12 portions of land, the wise strangers dwelt in peace, and they built a church which was a full 60 feet long by a full 26 feet wide. At one end was a statue 4 feet high, carved from a beech trunk. The roof was thatched with reeds after the manner of the Britons. The walls were of wicker overlaid with plaster of chalk and mud. Iliad is buried outside the forked path before the church, and on his tomb was written, "I brought Christ to the Britons and taught them. I buried Christ, and now here my body is at rest." Islis was the first convert, and it is said that she alone knew the secret of the holy hawthorn. What this may be, none can know now. It is said that when Druthin murmured against the staff of Iliad, she placed a twig in water and it flowered. Here in this holy place, under the direct guidance of God, our Father founded the first church of Britain. It is said it was not built by human hands, which is true, and from here shall come that which will be the salvation of mankind in the years to come. Here was the resting place for the souls of the dead, where they received their last sustenance before passing through the glass wall. From here ran the old road to the place of light, where the bright-winged spirits flew freely in the place called Dansart in the old tongue.